Dr. Jim Willie, welcome back to Free the Money. It's great to have you on.
Well, it's good to be back. Here we are, the long, hot summer. And, it's not just a hot summer. It's a very dangerous summer for the economy. I have begun to go on record because I've done a couple of other shows in the last several days. One tough question that I refuse to dodge is how much time do we have before we're at risk of economic collapse? And I think it's a couple more months.
Couple months.
If we're into October and we're still way over $5 for diesel and we're still like $80 for crude oil, interventions are not going to work. There's going to be an extraordinary need to cut interest rates even with price inflation. And right now, Warsh at the Fed is letting it be known it's 9-3, 9 in favor of hold, 3 in favor of hike. But, when you're in inflationary depression, you need to lower the interest rates even though you shouldn't. You need to even though you shouldn't. You get worse inflation, but which is worse, an economic decline or an inflationary episode? Right now, they're pretending that we're not in a depression, and they're lying.
Yeah.
So I'm watching the diesel price. That is my litmus test, and it has not gone down for 2 weeks. It was $1 lower 5 weeks ago. It's very complex what's going on now. This war has like 5 fronts, not just U.S. versus Iran. Okay, I got into some arguments in March with a couple of, one was a colleague and one was a good client. And they were saying, Jim, this is crazy what's going on here. This is a war that can't end. This is a war that Trump got pushed into. This is a 5-front battle. And now, in the last week, we've seen an eruption in Japan.
Yes, I definitely want to dive into Japan. I know we've talked about Japan in previous episodes, but obviously a lot has happened since you've been on my show. So love to start with what's going on between the United States and Japan. So obviously the United States intervened alongside Japan to support the yen after it hit, I think, a 40-year low against the dollar. We know Japan is the largest foreign holder of U.S. Treasuries with more than $1 trillion in Treasuries. So how much of this is actually us protecting the U.S. Treasury market versus just, trying to save the yen?
Let's get a little preliminary comment.
Okay.
The Federal Reserve has now become the United States central bank.
Mm-hmm.
It was not before. Before, it was the City of London globalist central bank managing the dollar. Now it's the United States central bank. And that's a subtle distinction that a lot of people miss. It used to be the globalist London center policymaker for monetary concerns related to the dollar. And that's not anymore. Not anymore. Now they have a stronger focus on the U.S. economy, a stronger focus on U.S. banks, and maybe a more flexible view on employment versus inflation. I'm hoping that they have a stronger emphasis on employment.
Yeah.
And they have some sacrifices on inflation because
the employment numbers just came out and we lost so many jobs. I think it was, I have it written down somewhere. It was like 22,000 jobs, I think.
Whatever it is,
22,000 jobs.
You should multiply it by 3 or 4.
Okay.
Because they're lying. Okay, they need to lower interest rates, even though they shouldn't. Okay, but Japan. Okay, let's focus on Japan. I don't remember since 1987, and we talked about this before. We had a simultaneous, understanding. I said we haven't had a dual monetary intervention by central banks since the Plaza Accord, and we almost said Plaza Accord at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the dollar, the yen, the franc, the mark, and the pound. and the Canadian dollar might have been in there. We tend to put, in the past, we tended to put the Canadian in the same room because they were like the appendage to the United States, like a tail to the United States. Now they're a communist, independent organization taking orders from the City of London. They have a complete break. All right. So what are they doing? What did the Bank of Japan do? Well, let me give a little intro, because last Friday, a week ago, I posted the July report. And in it, you could see that I have a graph of the dollar yen. Now, because the yen, it used to be that 100 yen was a dollar, roughly. Mm-hmm. Now it's more like
160? 150?
Well, the dollar is worth 160 yen.
Yeah.
Yeah, 160. Well, what happened in that chart was that there were 3 interventions to bring the dollar yen down. That's a support to lift the yen. You got to, it's upside down. The dollar yen is going up, 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 and that's a weakening yen. The dollar's going up versus, I got to repeat that because people, they get confused. They say, wait a minute, what do you mean the dollar yen's going up? No, the yen's going down. No, the dollar is going up in terms of yen. They call it the dollar yen.
Yes.
Okay. It was, I think, a week ago, Monday or Tuesday or both, the dollar yen went from about 163 to 157 in one day. And that's a huge move.
Yeah.
Okay. But it did the same in something like May. It did the same in something like March. I don't have the exact month, but 3 times a big decline in the dollar yen.
Yeah.
And the dollar yen went back up again, higher than before, higher than the previous.
Like no intervention is going to save it. And people are shorting it. All these traders are shorting it.
And they're going to make money.
Yeah.
And this is not an effective method to resolve anything. What it does is it buys time with Band-Aids to get ripped off quickly. That's one of the best metaphors that I've ever heard regarding central banks. Putting a Band-Aid on it, and it's going to get ripped off really quickly.
So for those who I just want to rewind a little bit, just so people really understand what's happening in Japan, because you are an expert in this. This is how I discovered you, Dr. Jim Willie. This is when I first fell in love with your content, was when you were talking about the Plaza Accord. I'm just curious how Japan kind of got themselves into this mess. Obviously, we have the Plaza Accord, and then we had like the lost decade. What happened to their economy? Why did they do zero interest rate?
Let me give you a walk down memory lane, because I was a young man back then. I'm no longer a young man. I'm no longer even a middle-aged man. I'm becoming something of a fossil, and one of the veterans of this battle. Some of my competitors years ago are dead. They're gone. They've retired. They're dead. Rob Kirby was murdered. Okay, let's go down memory lane, because it was the 1990s that I started wising up to what's going on. Okay. In 1992, I was 40 years old. Okay. Before that, I would read the New York Times in my job at Digital Equipment Corp, where I was a marketing research analyst, and in a group of about 6 or 7 analysts, and we had a great time. We did a lot of good work. And I began reading Barron's in the late 80s and the early 90s, Barron's. I didn't learn jack shit from the Wall Street Journal. I never learned anything from the Wall Street Journal. There was a guy named, I think is William Pesek, P-E-S-E-K. He had a column every week. It was a long column every week in the Barron's. Okay, so I'd sit under a tree, Bree. I'd sit under a tree in the summer and the late spring and read Barron's on a Saturday. I'm reading Barron's. Okay. What I learned is this. There was I could back up so many times. This is a long story with many sides, and I like to fill in some of the important elements. In the 1980s, a guy named Richard Deming was a statistical analyst for quality control. And he got turned away by American manufacturers, in particular the big 3 automakers. Okay. They were not too interested in statistical analysis for quality control. They said, "You're not an engineer, get out of the room." So he went to Japan. And in the late 70s and the early 80s, Japan had a renaissance. They turned into a powerful export industry, with the cars, Honda, Nissan, back then it was Datsun, Honda, and then Accord later, like 10 years later. They had, computers, Fujitsu, Hitachi, they had Nikon cameras, they had a lot of technology, and they employed Richard Deming, became their king, their national king of quality control. And I got my hands on a little booklet for experimental designs, and just to throw out a term that's really quite important. It was a fractional factorial design. Okay, he brought about fractional factorial designs to vary all kinds of factors, vary those factors, vary these factors, and you can do independent conclusions regarding analysis of variance. And in my book, I still have the book. It's Taguchi. Okay, the Japanese embraced Deming. And as a result, where am I going with this? As a result, they became an export industry powerhouse.
Okay.
And that meant a lot of people, a lot of trade partners were buying their products. And the yen went up.
Okay, and then that was a problem.
And that was a problem. So they call in Wall Street and say, what do we do? What do we do? We got a mess here. We got too powerful a currency. This is 1990, okay?
Uh-huh.
And I'm just I'm a whippersnapper, almost 40 years old, and I'm picking up a lot of stuff. I mean, I was a statistical analyst, marketing research. This is right up the alley for financial analysis related to marketing. Okay, so Wall Street got in there and said, take it down to 0%. That'll weaken your currency. Mm-hmm. And they said, oh, no, that'll cause all kinds of problems. We can't do that. You can't make money free. That'll distort everything. That'll distort the price of capital. And Wall Street said, don't worry about it. We'll help you manage it. Yen carry trade. Borrow the yen. Invest in treasuries.
Yeah. Make
sure that the yen doesn't get too strong, because they're borrowing the yen. Make sure the interest rate doesn't go above 0. Okay, do you know what happens, Yen? Bree, I called you Yen. You know what happens, Bree, when you've got like 0.25% on your loan and you go up to 2? You get killed.
Yeah.
Okay? You get killed. It doesn't work like, well, that's 8 times higher. Well, that's linear thinking, and it doesn't work that way. It's exponential. It could be 10 times worse. Okay. So they don't want the yen to go up. But there's another side to it. They don't want the yen to go down. When the yen goes down, they're an oil importer, and that's what's relevant now.
Okay.
Okay, I'm all over the place. I'm explaining the yen carry trade.
You're doing a good job, though.
Okay, the yen carry trade started with a strong yen from an export industry. The cars were just part of it. There was lawnmowers. Honda got involved with lawnmowers. You had cameras, computers, PCs. Oh, they had all kinds of things. And I'm leaving out a lot. The Japanese were involved in telecom, super chips. Okay, so Wall Street borrowed, I think they're big effing liars, okay? Wall Street came out a year ago and said, we estimate the total Wall Street exposure to borrowed yen to be about 200 billion. Billion.
Yeah, more than that.
I think it's 2 to 4 trillion.
Yeah.
2 to 4 trillion. Okay, I've heard independent analysts, not big bank, okay? If it's big bank, they're biased. They're not going to tell you they're exposed to the hilt and they're in danger of wrecking the U.S. Treasuries. Okay, this is very complicated. We could talk for a full hour about the yen carry trade,
yeah,
and,
of course.
and we're going to, I think, go halfway there at least. So, Wall Street borrowed the yen at 0.
Mm-hmm.
They bought and invested in U.S. Treasuries and earned 5%, 6%, 8%, whatever. And remember you remember in the 19 early 80s, it was 13%. It was 12%.
Wow.
I had a mortgage. My first mortgage was a little house in Littleton, Massachusetts, and it was 13.7%.
My gosh.
Okay. So if you're investing in treasuries, with borrowed yen,
Yeah.
and it goes back down under Volcker to like 7%,
Mm-hmm.
you're making trillions. That's what the yen carry trade was all about. At the same time the yen was too strong and they went to zero was when the United States had monetary policy that matched the price inflation from the enormous increase from the oil price having to, remember that was 1973 and 4, they quadrupled the oil price and they had windfall profits tax and, oh my gosh, it was a nightmare in the 70s, late 70s. Well, by 1990, Japan had arrived as an export industry powerhouse. Okay, if you go over there, you see low unemployment and enormous factory output.
And an aging population. I mean, what's the average age of a Japanese person?
I don't know. I try not to get too caught up in that because they've got bigger problems than an aging population. Right now, they've got a high oil price. It's causing enormous price inflation. I have a term, Bree, that I use. If you're printing a lot of money to cover government deficits and you're handing out money to households, that's monetary price inflation. If you've got high energy costs, you've got high cost inflation.
Mm-hmm.
We've got high cost inflation. That's why gold and silver are not zooming right now. We got cost inflation, and it's harmful.
Well, and Bitcoin, like scarce assets, even real
tactics and household drainage, foreclosures for homes, small business getting ruined, trucking industries not making any money. Okay, a really good litmus test coming up is how many trucking companies go bankrupt. Next.
Yeah, we've talked about this in the past. I'm curious if we're going to see bigger numbers. But if we do see this unwind, are we going to see assets like Bitcoin, even gold, obviously Treasuries? Are we going to see a huge impact on our economy?
Let me just make a quick speech about Bitcoin. Bitcoin made some really big moves when the Ukraine war happened. Does anybody notice the correlation between money laundering from Ukraine and the underground activities?
The narco wars.
Okay, it's a trafficking coin. Okay? Now, not 100%, not 70%, not 80%. If I had to guess, I think maybe 30% is trafficking. Okay, now, the fact that Bitcoin has stalled in the last 2 years could mean that it's going down just because of deflationary pressures from the cost increase. It could mean interdiction and interruption of narco flows. Mm-hmm. I mean, can you open the Wall Street Journal and get a good report on narcotics trafficking?
No.
Okay, where do you get information on narco flows? Nowhere. You have to figure it out indirectly, implicitly. Mm-hmm. And I think that the Ukraine war has seen a very big decline in narco trafficking. Now, that is not good for Bitcoin. At the same time, Bitcoin got, let's just say, mixed up in the Epstein debates.
Yeah. We're living in a world where surveillance continues to expand and privacy tools are becoming more and more important. And I know some of these tools can be really complicated, but I'm here to tell you about something that is very easy to use. Financial privacy is extremely important, and that's why I want to tell you about Zano. So Zano is a private by default cryptocurrency where users' transactions are totally confidential, unlike Bitcoin. So with Bitcoin is a public ledger where if somebody sends you money through Bitcoin, you are able to look up how much money they have in that wallet address, and you're able to see other interactions they've had. With a private cryptocurrency like Zano, this is not the case. You're not able to find out any information. And this is very important today and especially in the coming years. The co-founder of Zano was actually one of the lead developers behind CryptoNote, which was the technology behind Monero, which is pretty cool. You can actually have so many different confidential assets on Zano. I'm able to take my Bitcoin and actually wrap it into a private version that lives on Zano, so that I'm able to have all the privacy features of Zano. I'm able to do this with a lot of other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum and Solana. And this is basically a way to wrap that asset to where it keeps the likeness of Bitcoin, meaning the value and the scarcity of Bitcoin, but it lives on Zano. This is a very, very cool feature. And I have done this with some of my Bitcoin. If you want to buy Zano, one of the most popular exchanges to buy Zano is Mexi, and I would recommend using a VPN. You can also find a full list of exchanges at zanolist.com/exchanges, and I'll have that link down below, as well as some other information about Zano. Yeah, no, but I'm saying if, for example, if people are getting free money and then they're investing it into Bitcoin and earning a profit, obviously, wouldn't you say a lot of the money from the yen carry trade is invested in assets like Bitcoin?
I think maybe the Japanese are into Bitcoin.
No, but I mean, if any hedge fund is able to borrow at zero rates,
I don't think in the 90s and 2000s that the main thrust of, say, let's just say it's 7 trillion.
Okay.
That's kind of my loose estimate. It's subjective. We don't know. I can't look it up in the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's about 7 trillion. Okay, I've seen some independent bank analysts say this between 5 and 7 trillion. And I think, finally, somebody gets it. Now, if they say 5 to 7 trillion, I guarantee you it's more than their upper figure. Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard Rob Kirby told me once before he was murdered, he thought the yen carry trade could be easily close to $10 trillion. Yeah. Because we talked about a lot of controversial stuff. And I actually got confronted by a military type in San Jose, Costa Rica, the afternoon following a long conversation with Rob Kirby. And he looked at me straight in the face, 10 paces away, and say, "Watch what you talk about on the telephone." And I go, "What? I'm out in public." Okay.
Yeah.
And I walked past him, and we each turned around, and he said again, "Watch as you talk about it on the telephone." And I thought, oh my gosh, Rob and I have been talking about the cabal and their influence with control of the news networks. Okay, there you have it. All right.
Have you seen anything about this Article 589 in the news? I've been seeing it a little bit on X. I know I was obviously out of town last week, so I wasn't super up to date with everything going on, but pretty symbolic with XRP. And I mean, it was talking about, I guess, Japan's civil code for this unwinding of the yen carry trade.
I giggle whenever I hear that there's a plan. This is going to be, okay. Do you remember, I don't know the name of the town in Spain, but when they let the bulls run?
Yeah.
That's going to be the yen carry trade unwinding. Okay, how are we going to manage the bulls when they run? You can't. You get out of the way.
So look into that article later, because I've seen it pop up a couple times, and I don't know
What's the name
if it's
again?
all conspiracy. It's Article 589, which means XRP.
Article 589.
Yeah.
How do you get XRP out of 589?
Because 589 is like a very important number in the XRP community. So when people see 589, they're like, "Ooh, XRP." Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, it's like.
Do you know what XRP
number
stands for? Exchange rate peg?
I didn't know that.
Okay, now you do. Okay. I believe it was, I'll just say this and I'll move away from it quickly. I think it was the product of a skunkwork and BlackRock.
Probably.
Okay. All right. Let's get back to the yen carry trade.
Yeah, yen carry trade.
Where's the vulnerability? Okay. I always think, well, so what? What about it? Why do we care about it? What are the effects? What are the risks? What's going on? Who's at risk? Who's at risk of getting trampled? What nation is at risk of getting destroyed? Whose debt is at risk of being harmed?
And our treasury market.
Our treasury market is at risk because that is the primary highly liquid instrument that most people, including the British and the Europeans, you got to include them.
Yeah.
And don't ever overlook that the Japanese banks borrowed their own money to buy treasuries. So it's United States, England, Europe, Japan. They all bought treasuries. They all borrowed yen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is very complex, Bree. I gotta give a little preliminary because it's messy and it's confusing. Okay. 2 years ago, or a little over 2 years ago, the Japanese central bank decided we have too many treasuries. They were at 1.2 trillion or so. They're at 1.1 trillion now. I think a little over, maybe
Over
1.05. I don't know
Yeah.
exactly, but
Over
it
a
is.
trillion.
I think it was they were at 1.3 trillion. China was up at 3 trillion at one point. 3 trillion around 2012 and 13. Okay, they're about 1 trillion now, 1.0. Japan is now bigger than China in treasury holdings. Let's just say it's a little over 1.0. I think it's 1.05, whatever. Okay. What happened in Japan is they sold $230 billion worth of treasuries. Now, ask an intelligent person on the street who's been to college and has had maybe an economics course and understands a bit about the dollar and finance. What happened to the Japanese yen if they sold $230 billion worth of treasuries?
Yeah, well, should go up.
It went down.
Yeah, but it shouldn't have gone up. Yeah.
Well, logically, you'd think sell the dollar, yen goes up.
Yeah.
Sell the treasury, dollar goes up.
It didn't happen though. Yeah.
And why is that?
Okay.
The Japanese yen, the British pound, the euro, they are all dollar reserve instruments with a different jacket on.
Oh, yeah.
They're all dollar instruments with a different jacket on.
Mm-hmm.
So when they sold the treasuries, they sold their own reserve basis for the yen, and the yen went down.
Yeah.
It went down 20%. Bree, it went down enough to cause a crisis, and they printed money to support the yen, and they were in a panic.
This is back in 2024, right?
I think it was 2022, October to October 23.
Okay.
October 22 to 23. Okay, you can see the big spike up in the dollar yen. It's reverse, remember?
Yeah.
The yen went down, which meant the dollar yen went up. Big spike, and it was profound. Now, when I discovered that, I couldn't call up Rob Kirby and say what's going on because he had been buried 2 years earlier from the murder. Okay, so I asked my sharpest colleague, who's Euroraj, on financial matters, not all kinds of other areas. He's a financial strategist from a London bank. And he said, Jim, you got to understand the yen and all the Forex currencies, they're all dollar-based instruments. I said, with a different jacket on. He said, that's good. That's a good metaphor.
I love
They're
that.
all dollars with a different jacket on. Okay. All right. So, the Japanese weakened their currency and gave a discount to all the yen carry trade players.
Wow.
Okay. And some of them began to sell out. So the yen carry trade reversal, I think, started 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, you could say, well, then they probably took...
Well.
Huh?
I've been reading that as well online, that it's been a couple years.
Well, that's what triggered it, the big discount when the yen went down. If you borrowed, this Wall Street collectively, they borrowed $4 trillion and they just got a 20% discount. They're going to say, let's take this. And they sold the Treasury bond.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is the unwind. Sell Treasury bond, buy back yen.
Yeah, of course.
Now, let's leave Japan out of it because they're confusing because of their, when they sell their own holdings of Treasury bonds, their currency goes down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The main player is the dollar and Wall Street banks. Okay. Let's just continue to make this complicated because it is complicated. If a British bank engaged in the yen carry trade, they're already holding dollars. They've got a big dollar position. So they borrowed the yen and they bought treasury bonds. If they sell treasury bonds, it doesn't affect the British pound as much because they're already in the hundreds of billions in treasury bonds. They're a huge financial arena. Deutsche Bank, German, they participated in the yen carry trade. It was easy money. They were getting phone calls. You got to do this. You got to do 0%. It's free money. You got 7.5% on the treasuries. Put in leverage. If it goes down to 6%, you're going to double your money. You're going to make hundreds of billions of dollars. Okay, that's the easy side. Now we got the hard side. I don't want to get too much involved with the Europeans. I want to focus on Wall Street.
Yeah, let's focus on Wall Street.
And oh my gosh, I laid out a scenario in the July report that if Wall Street dumps a big batch of treasuries, then Japan should dump an equal batch of treasuries, and that would neutralize the effect on the yen. This is really messy. I think this is like an advanced international finance course in an MBA school. When this blows up, we're going to have to be careful about the signals for having it blow up. And we got a really big signal last week with the joint intervention. And when Besant, oh gosh, Besant was licking his chops. Trump said, what can we do? And Besant said, well, 25 years ago when I was working for Soros,
yep,
we kicked the British pound.
I mean, this is his specialty. He's a currency trader.
So he took notes by yen.
Yeah, that was totally psychological, by the way. I mean, there's no way someone of his intellect is going to write down a little memo to himself with something so basic, and also for that small of a dollar value wouldn't even make a difference whatsoever.
The Japanese invested $50 billion worth of yen. That's what they bought. $50 billion worth of yen. They bought yen, but converted to dollars, and that's how much they bought. Okay, we have not heard how much the Treasury Department bought of yen, but we're now being told that they sold euros.
Yeah.
Okay,
not really,
when you hear they sold euros,
yeah.
you got to be careful. They sold euro bonds.
I read somewhere that's an estimated about 88 billion.
88. I had not heard the figure, but that is that's interesting, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So combine, and you get almost $140 billion intervention. That's big. Okay, next question. What did Besant at Treasury sell? Okay, they said they sold euros. That's not clear. Okay, I'm not saying it's lying. It's not specific. Okay, now, for those who understand European economics and finance, the Germans don't have a lot of volume for the Bund because they had surpluses. They were offering 0% with surpluses. The French were offering 0% with huge volume. Besant sold French government debt.
Okay.
And it's called the OAS.
I'm going to look into that later. I have no idea.
Okay. In other words, what was liquid?
Yeah.
French debt.
And so that's most likely. Can we check that at all? How could we confirm that?
I don't know. You're not probably going to get that in the Wall Street Journal. You're going to get it from guys like Tom Luongo and Martin Armstrong and Alistair McLeod. Those, I think, are the big three really smart teachers out there that I learned from. Okay, there's more to this. If Besant sold French government debt, was there a motive to stick it to him? Americans don't fully realize, but for a few years now, the United States has been at war with Europe. And NATO is the European military arm that follows European and British orders and says, fuck you to the Americans. NATO is the globalist military arm that is involved very heavily in trafficking of all kinds. I could go on, but I'd rather leave that topic alone. But just to say, I heard in 2021 and 2 that there was a war between Wall Street banks and the European banks. They wanted the Americans to lower interest rates, and they would not. They're holding a lot of Treasury bonds, and they wanted to make money and wanted to avoid losses. And then the war erupted that was blamed on Russia, but it was really caused by the Ukrainian Nazis. The, what do they call it? Azov, the Azovs, AZOV. AZOV is the Ukrainian Nazis. And they display their swastikas, and they are very proud of their fascism. Okay, they started murdering a lot of Russian-speaking people in the eastern, like Donbass and Luhansk. Donbass, Luhansk, that whole eastern region. There's a lot of Russian spoken. They went in and did ethnic cleansing, murdered. If I had to guess, I would say they murdered between 50 and 100,000 civilians.
Wow.
That just a rough figure. And that's when the Russians said, we got to get in there and protect Russian-speaking people. And what's also not very well known is that eastern Ukraine is where there were a lot of Russian military hardware manufacturing. All right. I got off track there. The United States sold French government debt. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think we have much respect for Macron. Okay.
Candace Owens certainly doesn't.
I think the guy stole the last election. I think Marie Le Pen won the last election, I think 4 years ago, 2021 or 2. And the word I heard from a military source and other sources that she receives 300 million euros to go away. So she's doing okay. Now she wants the presidency in a very real way, and she wants to rescue the nation from collapse because the Russian sanctions and all the higher energy costs are bringing about a collapse of industry in France and Germany. Okay, is Trump with Besant trying to hasten the French collapse? I think so. Okay, there's a lot of sides to this Iran war.
And I think it's very psychological. Like they're doing a lot of symbolism. Like even with that note was so weird. The fact that went so like all on the internet. I'm like that was.
I think
so
he wrote
planned.
that so that it could be noticed.
Of course, and then we can have people taking a side, people trading and all, and like then we don't even necessarily.
There is a psychological side, and I don't want to minimize that, but there is a very big structural side.
Of course.
And what Besant, there's a message to what Besant did.
Yeah.
The U.S. government does not want to run on the Treasury bonds.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is exactly what the reverse yen carry trade will bring about.
So recently, though, I saw like our 30-year Treasury yield reached, what was it, like 5.27%, the highest level since 2007. What is that saying? What is that saying to the American people right now?
Rates, more foreclosures, housing market's going to go down another 15, 20%. I've been advising clients for 2 years. Jim, I just got a bunch of inheritance. I got $180,000. Should I buy a house? And I said, why don't you wait 2 years?
Yeah.
And maybe get it at 20% lower price.
Yeah.
You really think that'll happen? I don't think the housing market's going to go down that much. And I said, well,
everyone says that.
you wait till the mortgage rates go up.
Yeah. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm waiting. I've been waiting, saving and waiting.
Oh, I think you should go long the TNX. If you want to trade, the TNX is the 10-year bond. If it goes up, the TNX goes up and your trade goes up. The TNX, that's how you make money on a rising interest rate. The TNX.
TNX, okay.
Yeah, stands for Treasury note and then an X. X is just fund. Okay, I look to see where do you think these triggers might come?
Yeah.
Okay, this is a massive intellectual challenge. And I am doing my best when I'm not relaxing. I'm thinking about the yen carry trade. No,
I'm going to quote you on that. When I'm not relaxing, I'm thinking of the yen carry trade. I love that.
When the yen carry trade gets into reversal, the yen's going to go up because they're selling treasuries and they're buying back the yen. They're paying their yen debt off.
So what does the reversal look like? And are we going to see this happen like, I don't know, in the next year?
I think it's going to have 5 hidden sides,
Okay,
5 hidden stages.
Number
and they're
one.
never going to tell you that we're in the reversal of the yen carry trade. It's going to be guys like Jake Claver with the XRP. It's going to be guys like Alistair McLeod, if he's permitted to talk about it. It's going to be Martin Armstrong. I think he's already mentioned it. I don't know that Tom Luongo has mentioned it yet. Those are my big 3 for learning. Honestly, I have tremendous respect for them.
James Lavish, the economist, talks a lot about the yen carry trade. He has for years now.
What can be some of the triggers? It'll be Japan raising interest rates, realizing that they're throwing money away. When they bring, okay, let's just take a closer look. The Japanese threw $50 billion to support the yen.
Mm-hmm.
Where did it go? Okay, I ask questions that most don't ask. Where did it go? It went into their banking system. Where did it go after that? It goes into loans. It goes into all kinds of different channels. And they get price inflation. So they don't get a cost inflation so much from oil in that maneuver. They get it from a monetary infusion. They're going to get some price inflation, which will be an even bigger impetus for raising interest rates, which they don't want to do. Mm-hmm. When they raise interest rates, the yen carry trade holders, the ones who borrowed yen, they're going to say, oh my gosh, we're getting screwed. They're raising interest rates. We have ultra low rates. Okay, we've got 0.5%. We've got 0.25%. And now they're raising rates. We're seeing catastrophic losses, okay? They're just buying time. The Bank of Japan is going to eventually force higher price inflation.
They have to.
From monetary price inflation. But right now they're getting a cost inflation from oil. Mm-hmm. They import over 95% of their oil, and so does South Korea.
Where do they import their oil from?
Mostly from the Persian Gulf.
Okay, so
I think they're getting restriction on their supply line.
Yeah. What's going on with the war right now?
How high is up? We had an imbecile across the street.
When are we ending this war? I thought we were going to be done by the summertime.
I thought it was going to be 3 weeks. Trump said it'd be 3 weeks. We're trying, the 2 parties, 3 parties, okay?
But what's going on right now with the Strait of Hormuz? I mean, obviously we're seeing a lot of uncertainty right now. Oil is up and down.
I got diverted by my little tangents.
It's fine. I keep you on track.
There is a real concerted effort by the 3 parties. There's a concerted effort to get back to peace talks. Pakistan did the last peace talk function of intermediary. I don't know if you're aware of that. Pakistan was intermediary. That was a month ago. That was 6 weeks ago. And they're spent. They said, okay, we did our effort and it all got sabotaged. We're not doing it again. Okay. So who's stepping forward? The Omanis. Oman. And Oman is not going in there alone. They got some Emirates, United Arab Emirates. They got some Emirati, and they got a Saudi. What's that?
I just did a little, I don't know. I did a little dance.
The Emirati dance?
Yeah, Emirati.
Okay. All right. So the Omanis are heading the intermediary role. They've got some other Arab parties involved. And here's what I think the challenge is. Will they collectively sign the Abraham Accords and bring about a Middle East solution that the Hamiltonians would admire. You know what I mean? The Hamiltonian trade model brings about geopolitical partnerships.
And that's what, wasn't Besant talking about this?
Yes, it is now
recently.
one of the main initiatives. And if it works, what we're going to see is a rebuilding of Iran and maybe a great deal of repair for the mainland country. And the big question mark is what will happen to Gaza? And I got to say, I do not want to talk about it or the hotels that are planned. Okay. I do not want to talk about it. Hotels on top of
gives me chills. I don't like,
just a plowed over zone with 100,000 skeletons. I just cannot, I can't go there. I can't go there.
It brings tears to my eyes. Honestly.
We've got it's actually 4 groups now. You've got the little hat country, you've got Iran, you've got the Gulf Arabs, and you've got the United States. And who's left out? Europe and England, because they're running NATO.
Yeah, and I mean, they already, and then also too, I just read Putin passed his version of the Clarity Act recently that goes into effect on September 1st. Did you see that?
No, I didn't, but thank you.
Yeah, this was like pretty big news the other day. It's like a comprehensive crypto law now.
Well, Japan,
and, the United States, we still have it.
Korea, and China also have theirs.
Yeah. I read that China. I didn't know that Japan did.
Europe has theirs.
Yeah. But I mean, it's crazy that we still haven't passed our Clarity Act.
That's because we have a communist element in our government and Congress.
And when do they go for recess?
I think it's next week, but I'm not sure. It could be Monday. I'm not sure.
I think it's like Monday.
I'm not sure. When you get into August, just everything disappears, and Europe goes on vacation. Europe is just out to lunch.
I fear we're going to be falling behind. And you know me, I'm not like some big supporter of the Clarity Act.
You got to get the rules. You have to have rules, otherwise there's not going to be a great deal of investment. Let's leave Clarity Act now to the side. Let me elaborate on what I just said about the 4 sides. Iran also has a pen. Oh, wait. Let's just focus on Iran. Okay, Iran, United States, the Arabs, and little hat country. Okay, Iran really has the Yemeni Houthis. Mm-hmm. They have the Islamic militias in Syria and Lebanon. Okay, that's all Iran. That's Iran and the appendages. Mm-hmm. Okay. The Gulf Arabs, we know who they are. They're all the Arabs. They're all the Arabs speaking, Gulf energy producers. So Trump has an accord, and I think it's a preliminary to the Abraham Accords. What he wants and what I think he's gotten is a defunding of the militias. And I don't think Iran is fully on board that. So we've got to get Iran to go along with the Abraham Preliminary Accord that defunds the militias that Little Hat military is attacking in Syria and Lebanon. Okay, this is very messy because in that area...
I just don't see why they would ever agree to any of this. Like, in what world would they ever agree to this? If
London has their way, they will never agree.
Yeah.
London is like giving the orders. I left out London for the 4 side because London is the external antagonist.
They're like the hand over everything, right?
Well, it's basically saying, we work with Iran, we work with Israel, and we want Israel to attack the militia run by Iran. So we want our proxy's appendage to get hit by our proxy Israel. Okay, it's London saying we're going to attack ourselves and wreck this peace deal. Okay, people just don't understand the various sides, and I honestly don't understand all of it myself.
Yeah,
I try to put it in good layman's terms.
So complicated.
I think Bibi, Bibi is his initials, okay? It's Bibi. Bibi takes his orders from London. Hey, look, we can't have a peace deal. We need more attacks. Can you get the IDF to do some attacks? Well, sure. Okay. The little known fact, Bree, from what I hear, and I've got various military sources and I got various Russian online sources that a colleague reads that gets translated. His name is Slavigrad. I get other reports that indicate Arabic online, and it gets translated. And I've got, a friend in Hong Kong who's involved in that. I got a lot of ears out there.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm reading is the Arabs, they'd like to get peace. They'd like to see an elimination of the entire Gaza motive. They're saying, we're not going to do anything until you fix Gaza. You got to stop what's happening in Gaza. You can't build hotels in Gaza. You can't kill relief workers. You can't kill and attack the convoys of food and water. You can't do this. And that's motivating the Muslim militias. What's not told is the damage to the little hat military. They've got, I'm hearing tens of thousands of deaths. And you'll never read that in the New York Times. Never read that in the Washington Post or in your backyard, the LA Times. LA Times, in my opinion, is a cousin to the New York Times. Just as shitty.
I mean, it's a genocide. I think there's no denial of that.
Okay. So where are the pressure points? Okay. Iran. Yeah, I do believe in, I've been called, an idiot by one of my colleagues. And I say, I don't think so. He said, Jim, if you think the Iranians are running out of money and that's going to be their motive to end the war, you're an imbecile. And I say, I don't agree with your point at all. Okay. It's not well known for my colleague crew, but I have one colleague who has a good friend who goes in and out of Iran and neighboring areas regularly. And he said to me, get this back to Jim Willie. My colleague then told me, he said, Jim, my friend in Iran knows people who got mowed down and murdered. And the total death count in over 12 cities for demonstrations and protests, unarmed people, the death count is over 50 to 70,000 people.
Yeah.
Okay, so if anybody like my one colleague who says, Jim, you're an idiot, I say, I don't think so. I don't think so. They're murdering the people. Bridges and electricity plants are getting hit. Bridges. Sorry. They have limited revenue in Iran. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
One of my military sources told me something that I have yet to have confirmed, but I'm going to share with you what he said. He told me this over a month ago. He said, remember the argument that the Iranians are running out of time because all their oil storage facilities are full, like in Karg Island? And if they shut down their oil production, maybe a third of it will never come back because the disintegration of the integrity of the oil. What do you call it? Not the oil derrick, just the. I'm short on the vernacular. The drilling structure, the structure that has to maintain the pressure in order to continue pumping. They can't shut it down because it'll lose its pressure. It'll go in reverse. It'll cave in.
I guess if I watched Landman, I would know this term, but I didn't watch that show.
I call it the production column.
Okay, I have a visual. Okay.
The drilling pipe work. Okay. And here's what my military source said. They never shut down their production. They just dumped oil in the Gulf. They dumped 1 million barrels of oil into the Gulf.
I remember.
And I said, well, that brings about a risk of setting it on fire.
Yeah.
And that will eliminate shipping. So the ships are moving through oil. He said, yeah, there are oil slicks everywhere.
That's crazy.
Okay. So the oil slicks, Bree, are on the Iranian side. It's 22 miles wide, Hormuz.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a new acronym, SOH, the Straits of Hormuz. I call it Hormuz Straits or just Hormuz.
Hormuz,
Okay,
let's call it
so
Hormuz.
on the Omani side, that's where all the traffic is going. Okay, then I asked my military guy, it's a Florida wingman. I said, tell me, I am hearing that it's at least 20 ships a day that are going through the Hormuz with U.S. escort, Navy escort. He said, no, it's 30 to 50 per day. I said, oil tankers too? And he said, yes, oil tankers, container vessels, you name it. But I think that has slowed down. I haven't gotten any intel in the last 2 weeks about the traffic flow of shipping, but Lloyd's is back in the game. Lloyd's has
Sure.
created a new contract, and I don't think it's anywhere near as favorable and low cost as before. It's going to be more expensive, and it's going to take a more collateral. Iran is trying to charge something enormous, like I heard many millions per ship. I remember it was about a month ago, Bree, that there was the ceasefire. Okay, they don't have, an agreement for ending the war. They have an agreement to end the hostility, the hot element of the war, the ceasefire. And then there was a attack in Lebanon again, and there was strain for the accord, the peace deal, the ceasefire, and Trump offered them a third of the confiscated funds that were in USD Tether. Okay, these are important elements to the negotiation and the whole war, but right now it's all about the Abraham Accord.
Okay.
Because involved in the last peace deal, the ceasefire deal, that's always a better way of calling it, was a reconstruction fund that CNN and the other ridiculous excuses for news reported. It was like a $300 billion in reinvestment construction fund for Iran. And CNN reported it as being a U.S. government expense. No, it's a Gulf Arab expense. The Saudis, UAE, Qatar. Qatar is a big LNG producer. And 2 of their 7 channels have been disrupted. They're going to need a year, at least a year. They say maybe 2 years to get those 2 back online in production. Bahrain, they're not big. Bahrain is a tiny island, tiny little peninsula. The reconstruction fund for Iran is the inducement for Iran to do the peace deal.
Yes.
Okay, we've messed them up.
Yeah, they're hurting a lot.
They're hurting. It's the bridges. It's some factories. It's some electric generating plants. But let me emphasize something. Trump and Hegseth have said that they have no more Navy. That's all been sunk. And that could be, but they've got these little, they call them mosquito ships. In World War II, we'd call them PT boats, like the one John Kennedy was injured on. PT 109 was his, made into a movie. So it's the fast moving, like 30 miles an hour, little tiny warships with 5 guys on board. Okay, Iran has some of them. They've got them, and they've also got the little floating types. Gosh, they're like their body is air. Okay, they're encapsulated air. I can't think of the right name. I'm short on some of my terminology. Little skiffs, floating skiffs. Okay, so they got engines on floating skiffs, and they go around shooting rocket-propelled grenades and machine guns, and they bother the crap out of bigger ships. They try to knock out their rudders, okay? You knock out the rudder, and the ship does not move because they can't steer it. So that's the vulnerable part of ships, the rudder. And by the way, that's how the Bismarck in World War II was sunk. A British or American aviator sent a torpedo down and knocked out the rudder of the Bismarck, the German Navy. Okay, Trump and Hegseth report that the Iranian Navy is no more, but they've got the annoying little elements. What Iran has is missiles and drones, and they're very deadly. So when they say, oh, they don't even have a Navy anymore, but they've got missiles and they've got drones. And anyone who thinks that we've knocked out all of their missile silos in the bunkers, you're crazy. You're crazy. If we've knocked out a quarter of them, I'd be surprised. If we knocked out half of them, I'd be shocked. But I don't have a lot of information about the bunkers. I showed one, I think it was the May report. It's like the side of a granite mountain, and they carve out an entry, they lift it up, and out on tracks goes a missile platform. They shoot the missile. 10 minutes later, it goes back, and they close the mountain, and you can bomb the crap out of the mountain, and it will not knock out the missile emplacement. Okay, wow. There's a lot of that in Iran, and I've seen a graphic that shows that they have 50 such bunkers. They've been working on it for years and years and years. Okay, they've got very good missiles, and in some respects, they're superior to the American missiles. I heard one of the advantages they have is that they've got missiles that they can notice that there's radar over there, so the missile steers left.
Wow. So just
and then
really, really
after they get past, these are supersonic. I mean, supersonic means over like 750 miles an hour, 800 and above. Okay. And then after it gets past that radar facility, it gets back on course. Okay. That is very advanced. And I read a really good article a couple months ago about their missile development. And it's solid rocket, liquid rocket, maneuverable rockets. They're really very smart people over there. They've got turbines for generating electricity. They don't need our technology. They got their own. There are many things that they're nowhere near as good, like computers and telecom and things like that. That's where we really shine.
But building weapons, they're very good at.
They're very good at building drone weapons. They licensed some drone technology to Russia, and Russia is building some now to do their own attacks in Ukraine. And we haven't even gotten to the Ukraine war, and I really don't want to touch on it. I really don't.
We can save that. We can save that for another time then, if you want to talk about.
All right. The Arabs must agree to the Abraham Accords. And they're realizing we don't have a choice here. And that means permanent recognition and trade cooperation with Israel. That means the boundaries are fixed, agreed upon, and no longer are we arguing about that, because we're engaging in trade and we're each growing with symbiosis. So you benefit, we benefit.
Timeline-wise, how soon do you think this could possibly happen, realistically?
I think by the early autumn.
Okay, wow.
There is I'm not saying it's going to be done by early autumn. I'm about ready to finish my sentence. By early autumn, there will be tremendous motive by Team Trump to get the Abraham Accords working, part of a key part of the peace deal, the ceasefire deal, leading to a lasting, strong peace before the midterm elections.
Yeah, keyword.
And, that would mean that we get a nosedive in the oil price. That's positive. We get a nosedive in the diesel. It'll go down $1, $1.25 more. It'll mean the trucking firms, which are running negative per mile, they don't go bankrupt. It'll mean that the households will have more money for disposable income, less spent on gasoline. It'll affect electric prices because many of them are oil and gas driven. We haven't gotten to the data centers. I don't think we'll be able to get to them either. We focused on this war and the end carry trade.
Wow. Yeah, no, it was good.
And I'm content with that, Bree. I'm telling you, this is going to be studied in finance master's programs for years to come. It's going to be like it's going to be kind of like a Plaza Accord. We needed the British, the French, and the Germans and Japanese to cooperate and bring down the dollar. Our dilemma now is that we're likely to need the opposite, an anti-Plaza Accord, because dumping the treasuries is going to be a very, very big problem.
But is there a way possibly to bring back manufacturing to America with the dollar as strong as it is?
I don't think the dollar is all that strong.
I mean, compared to other currencies, though.
Well,
it wouldn't make sense for us to be like a great exporter right now.
The motive with bringing back manufacturing is to reduce the $1 trillion deficit.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do.
And didn't we hit $40 trillion recently? And I know it's much higher than that with total liabilities, but that's like $9 billion a day.
I just look at the very easy figure, 100 days, another trillion.
Yeah.
So 3 trillion in a year plus. Okay. June, July, August, another trillion. Okay. Yeah. It's as simple as that. And, that's very rough napkin calculation. But when I think about bringing back manufacturing, it's to relieve the trade deficit in order to strengthen the dollar in the face of Treasury dumping related to the yen carry trade reversal. The yen carry trade reversal is probably going to bring about a crisis for the Treasuries.
Mm-hmm.
There's Absolutely. Going to be an effort by Trump to solicit aid from many trade partners to support the dollar. Don't let it happen. And don't expect the French to help us, because we're screwing the French right now.
Oh, yeah.
This is going to get very complicated and very ugly, but I'm going to lead to a conclusion here that's kind of interesting. We're going to get to a point where very, very few nations are going to want to settle trade in treasury bonds, treasury bills.
Is this done on purpose?
Well, what are they going to do? Let's just keep it simple. What are the Saudis and UAE going to accept for oil sales? Yuan?
Maybe. Bitcoin?
I think it's going to be a combination of yuan and XRP.
Okay, yeah.
How do you like that for a segue, girl? Let me ask a question for motivating this position of mine. Is there an increase in the distrust between nations and their sovereign debt?
Of course, that's why we need a neutral asset.
We need a neutral asset. Okay. Are the Saudis and UAE already leaning toward Chinese yuan for oil sales?
Yeah, we've already seen that. We saw that.
Even Japan.
Yeah.
Japan is loading up on yuan.
And then I want you later, like after this, to look into Article 589 and how symbolic that is for XRP, because 589 means all the money, like with XRP. So I think
means a global standard.
It's very plausible that XRP could be used in this unwinding. It's kind of interesting just to think of. And I know that's a bit of a conspiracy, but at the same time, it would.
I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think it is a plausible potential plan.
Yeah.
And, I focus on the Gulf Arabs. What are they going to accept for oil sales? It's not just oil. It's gas, it's fertilizer, and it's LNG.
And guys, if you want to get updates on everything that Dr. Jim Willie is saying, I have his newsletter linked down below, so be sure to subscribe and check him out. But it has been a pleasure having you on the show. You're always one of my favorite guests, if not my favorite. Always appreciate taking the time to chat with you and just get all these updates. I always feel like I'm in school.
I taught 3 college classes, and it was a lot of fun, but that was, introductory mathematical statistics. I did marketing research for the computer industry. We're now dealing with marketing research of the global financial and geopolitical system. And this is a lot more difficult, but I don't really use my mathematics. I don't use my statistics. I don't pull out an old textbook in order to figure out what's going on with the silver market. We got very simple mathematics, and we have very complex resolution of corruption.
Yeah.
We've had 30 years of narco presidents, and anyone who thought that Trump coming back in 4 years can fix it all, you're nuts. He's looking now for a legal avenue to have a third term, and he'll be accused of being an emperor. I don't know if this is going to happen because he's suffering from very serious fatigue.
We'll see what happens. All right. Well,
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me on, Bree. It's always a pleasure. I love talking to you, and
I love
you
talking
ask
with
a
you.
lot of good questions, and you keep the discussion going better than many hosts. Okay.
Thank you.